Welcome to this episode of AthenaX live stream. I'm your host for today, Neil, and joining us is Rudy Rong, the CGO of Memecore. How you doing, Rudy?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's super cool that you're on the show. I think you might be our biggest guest yet. And when I was doing a little bit of research, a bunch of like different media comes up, right? You've got your high profile sort of articles on CNBC, you're on 60 Minutes, you're in LA Times, and you really brand yourself as the crazy rich Asian. But you're here today, and maybe you could share with our audience today about who you are and what you've been doing in the space in your own words.
Yes. So, hey everyone, I'm Rudy Rong. The name Crazy Rich Asian actually came from my very first newspaper report on the front page of LA Times. So that was based out of my first entrepreneurship out of college, which was a private supercar club out of USC. We were charging each member $20,000 per annual membership fee, and we host a lot of crazy events, including private jet parties, mansion parties. We actually did rent out the Trump's mansion on the Mulholland Drives in LA back in the days. So that was cool. And I graduated from USC. Also went to the leadership in business world at Wharton Business School. And yeah, here I am. And now I'm spending majority of my time working on Memecore.
I mean, that sounds like you had hell of a life back then, and then you've decided to join some of us in the trenches in Web3. Why make the switch from Web2 into Web3?
So there is actually an interesting story behind it. I was doing my gaming startup out of college back in the days, and I got on the Forbes 30 under 30 nominee, and I got the award. So I went to the 30 on 30 cocktail party, and that's where I met Justin Sun for the first time. And back then, he was still doing audio dating app called 陪我, and it didn't have many users. And he's telling me crazy stories about he's creating the next internet, which is called Tron on blockchain. And I didn't believe him. Then, next thing you know, I saw him running this huge campaign with Binance, and Binance was a small exchange back then, back in the days, right? And they raised over $100 million, in a week. And that really got me interested. So I did some research and I found out that blockchain is actually a revolutionary technology which allows users to really dominate the control. So instead of just being a player, which, doesn't have any ownership, it doesn't have any say to the dApps or to the games or to the ecosystem they're using. By using the blockchain, they can be partially owners and also eco providers. So because my parents were the first waves of internet entrepreneurs back in the days, right? They created one of the largest social casino companies in China called Bianfeng Gaming, which got eventually acquired by the government forcefully. Even when I was a kid, I always thought of a really decentralized um, platform for games could be really interesting. That's really what got me into Web3.
And I guess that's sort of the inspiration towards building your project right now, which is a layer one called Memecore. And I love the name, by the way. It's memes, it's funny, it's great. Kind of fits into the gaming aspect of what your family used to do. And I think maybe it's best described in your own words. What is Memecore?
So Memecore is a layer one, EVM compatible layer one, and the playground for all memes, bridging the infrastructure and dApps with meme communities, empowering memes with utilities, and we are an active investor incubator for all meme communities out there. So we do investments, we help bridge the utility of the dApps with the power of the communities.
I've never actually heard of a meme with a utility. Do you mind going a little bit into what it kind of looks like?
Yes. So right now, when meme first started, the very first meme I personally bought was Dodge. So it did not have much utility. It started out as a joke to mimic Bitcoin. And now, it's one of the most influential crypto out there. and it has a huge community. And now you can use Dodge to buy Tesla. You can use Dodge with multiple dApps. So that's one examples, right? On Memecore, we do similar. So we have the Meme Max, which coming out, which is a perp exchange specialized tools for trading meme perps, right? So, a lot of times on the centralized exchanges, you cannot find enough liquidity and enough tools to trade all kind of memes. But on MinMax, you get that opportunity to launch your own means and having your own means trading on perps with great liquidity on MinMax.
Nice. And it's so funny that you mentioned Doge because I remember back then Elon became essentially the new owner of Doge as a sort of a joke, and the tagline was to the moon, right? And kind of what you're doing with Memex as well. You're taking memes to the moon. I guess it's kind of a bit of like a homecoming, and yeah, it's pretty impressive what it all sounds like right now. I want to go a little bit into the past on what you did to really grow Memecore, to really like put Memecore out there in the wild. So a little bit of time ago, Memecore became the second largest Trump coin holder. And I think there was a headline by Forbes that said that you bought something like $17.5 million worth of Trump tokens, and which was also a meme. And I guess I would like to know what was like the strategy behind buying that much Trump?
So, main course participation in Trump dinner is based on our mission to represent the global meme culture, especially at a time when many are calling it dead, back in the days. So, Donald Trump is more than a political figure. He's arguably one of the most iconic living memes, right? So, he
Exactly.
disrupted the traditional political system and leveraged meme like communication to speak directly to the public. His rise represents the power of memes to influence culture, perception, and movements. So that principle really aligns with Mincore's vision of a decentralized community-driven future. And I was actually able to actually attend a dinner at Washington, D.C. We even hosted an after party as well. And we got all the top 50 Trump holders attending our parties, and everyone loved it. So we rented out a whole place across from the Capitol Hills. Everyone had a blast. We had a huge limousine, and we got a watch. And they only give two in the world, the diamond watches, and that was a lot of fun. I think it's a great strategy, and it shows our support, and it definitely builds the bridges with the U.S. based meme communities. It reintroduces the meme culture as a serious but creative force in Web3 and positioned meme core as the layer one chain that championing the next wave of media innovation.
Right. And during that dinner when you were with Trump and all this other guests, maybe you could give us a little bit of background to what was the conversations that were happening behind that curtain, if you don't mind sharing a little bit.
Well, it's kind of a secret, but it's definitely about. He definitely shared a lot of great support for crypto in general, and he did say crypto will be one of the main focuses for the U.S. direction, and he wants to make sure U.S. is the biggest market and the biggest have the most influence in Bitcoin and in blockchain technology in general.
So it's, I guess it's tailwinds for the US market, huh?
Yeah, definitely. He's still a huge supporter. Even his son is a huge supporter. I actually just went to Miami and chilled. We had brunch with Eric Trump, and I took a selfie with him. He's a super cool guy. Yeah, so we've have always been a big supporter in the Trump families, and we really approve their dedications on helping the blockchain to build the blockchain into like a global influential sector.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of photos that have been circulating around the internet as well. Like I've seen your photo with Kathy Wood, Tom Lee, and I think for someone from the Asian part of the world to go out there and do essentially BD with these guys, there is a lot of question marks on what would you actually say to these people who are, these like really big profile guys, and you're in that driver's seat right now. I would like to ask, like, when you do approach them, what is your biggest takeaway when you have conversations with them?
So I came out, I represent Memecore when I talk to them. So obviously, I started out the conversation introducing Memecore and talking about our plans for potentially DAT in the next year. And the biggest takeaway from those conversations, though, is the excitement from Wall Street, who like people like Cassie Wood, like Tom Lee, and many other, including BlackRock, Citadel. They're really trying hard to bridging the liquidity between traditional finance and crypto and blockchain, right? So
Right.
blockchain is the technology behind the direction which everyone is trying to do is making the tokenized stock
Right.
and make Nasdaq, make the NYSE to be able to trade 24/7, right? So there would be no more closing post market or pre market. There will be like 24/5 or 24/7 even. So I think that's like the biggest takeaway is a lot of traditional finance people are really welcoming and embracing the blockchain technology and try to uh, leveraging that to increase the efficiency of Wall Street.
Right. And I think that's alpha right there in itself as well, because while everyone's trying to take a big look and understanding of tokenizing RWAs, you're already ahead of the curve with tokenizing stocks. And I think it's going to sound like a pretty big narrative for 2026. With these institutions who are looking to essentially bring more liquidity with these RWAs, these tokenized stocks, what else do you think the institutions are out there discussing in these private conversations?
So I was actually at Counter Fitzgerald's conference in Miami, and Counter Fitzgerald is one of the largest investment banks for all kind of crypto projects, and the founder of Poly Market was there. So um, yeah, prediction market is definitely a big thing. So tokenized stock is big, and the tokenized stock is big in different levels, right? So like Hyperliquid, Bitget, they're kind of like doing their own thing, which is like Hyperliquid or like some many others, right? OSTM, like all these kind of people, they're doing like RWA, but with no compliance. Basically, they're trying to basically market make all the orders themselves. So it's kind of like a closed world, like their own bubble and Xstock Undo, they're kind of like they're kind of like act like brokerage. I mean, Undo just acquired their transfer agent license last month, but they're a way smaller transfer agent with way less like high value equities or tickers that they represent. So it's going to be harder for them in the long run. I think. I think the main ones are the more compliance ones coming out in 2026, which including Securitize, BlackRock, JP Morgan, and their related parties. They are bringing on the actual registration agents and transfer agents for the US equity market, which can allow people to do same day token registration as a stock, right? So that means the tokenized stock would not only be like a tradable ticket, but it would also be like the actual equity, right? So you will be able to take
Mm.
collateral with traditional banks, with JP Morgan, with like BlackRock and their related entities. So that's huge, right? That really like opens the doors for like trillions dollars of liquidity for everything. And that would really bring a lot of traditional money into this market. So I think that's the most exciting thing I believe is going to happen next year. And that's what everyone is working towards.
Yeah, I mean, look, that has been fascinating to discuss and think about, because I think with a lot of what is happening in RWA right now is this sort of like fight for bringing more liquidity to keep the liquid assets, or like to turn the illiquid assets into something more liquid, and the blockchain being that sort of like technology to bridge that gap between illiquid and tradable liquid assets and supported by the institutions. I think it's going to be quite an exciting thing to see, because it's essentially going to change the way that we deal with traditional markets moving forward as well.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so I really like what you're sharing with your experience in the US, and I want to double down a little bit on that, right? Because you came from a family that I would assume is originated from Asia, and then you moved to like the US. And so I'm sure that there are many different cultural differences that you've seen along the way. And I was just wondering, right? As you're talking about this, what seems to be the biggest difference between these two cultures when it comes to the topic of risk and money?
Yes. So most of the Asian capitals, Asian rich people are from developing countries to developing economies, right? And one trait of developing economy is that everyone get rich fast, but nothing is that sustainable comparing to the Western capital, which are more coming from developed economy, which most of their monies are kind of like older money. Um, they made their profits through more sustainable, longer term return business models,
Mm.
which there's no right and wrong, right? It's all just all good, right? But they trust traditional finance less, right? When they come to blockchain, that's why a lot of Asian capital come to blockchain, come to crypto. So they're a little more idealistic. They believe blockchain will revolutionize traditional finance, and also they don't have enough trust into the long-term value of traditional finance, traditional equity market, and they're less comfortable with that, right? Compared to the Western capital, they are actually having way more trust in the traditional capital structure than blockchain. They will see blockchain as a complementary tool to the current dollar and US Wall Street equity market, capital market. So blockchain is not like a revolutionary thing for them. It's more like it's a great improvement, great tool, great technology. But for a lot of early Ethereum investors from China or from Asia, back in the days who invested Ethereums and Bitcoin back in 2012 or 2013, 2014, they see this as like a monetary revolution, like Satoshi's vision, which is going to eventually overturn like dollar, RMB, and all centralized currency, right? Which is also a great vision, but I think that's where the main differences I see.
Yeah, and it's starting to sound like the Asian market views it as sort of like a transformative tool. And I recently read some stuff about World Liberty Financial as well. And their take and view on crypto was a little bit more of a crypto was used as a tool for existing traditional finance. And the reason was because they were able to draw yields and they were able to democratize access to DeFi yields on the blockchain through their institutions. So I'm just kind of like wondering, like, is there something which the traditional Asian outlook does not understand about the US Western side? Or why would the Western view of blockchain be focusing on crypto as a tool rather than a new rail?
I think a lot of Asian money, Asian capitals are from China, right? And China has a really, really strict capital control, monetary control for their rich individuals.
Right.
So that makes a lot of rich people get move their assets to blockchain to kind of like escape the traditional monetary control from Chinese government, right? But in the U.S., the U.S. money and the U.S. capital doesn't have that issue because most of their rich people made money through compliant capital market from the past 100 or 200 years. So they just got really comfortable and really comfortable with the current setup, and they have a lot of trust with the current legal framework for the US capital market and the dollar system. So I think that's the kind of the roots of the differences.
Right. And if like the wheel isn't broken, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
Sense, yeah. So recently, well, I think about a year ago, Shanghai actually passed a law that essentially legalized crypto ownership in China, but companies still can't formally operate crypto businesses there. Why do you think this is the case? Because it seems like, they're putting one foot in and the other foot is still outside. Why do you think this is the reason that they've done the legislation this way?
Yeah. So um I think it's actually more simpler than a lot of people may have expected. China's only legally support the ownership of crypto uh, because they want a legal backup to take the crypto from their systems and to it's more like a legal explanation for them to step in, right, and to have control over the cryptos that the Chinese citizens own. So that's from my point of view, right? And they don't want legalized blockchain for business because that would really diminish their control over their capital market, including RMB. The RMB right now is super centralized, so any transactions, especially big volume, could be frozen and rolled back at any time. So that's totally everything contradictory with the blockchain vision, right? So yeah, I think we should be extremely careful about doing any blockchain related business practices in China. And yeah, I would not recommend, touch that sector.
Why though? Why would that be a problem? Because if ownership is essentially legal, will it be like a straight up like a red flag to even launch some tech product within China?
Yeah, so even if you can own crypto, but that's just like another reason for them to to have more control over you because everything you own is kind of like owned by the government, right? If you read
Hmm.
the contract you sign with your bank in China, there's a clause there, they basically the government has a final say on if they need to froze an account or like take all the capital inside the account for whatever reasons they deem reasonable, right? So that kind of like they just included all their citizens' ownership in crypto under that jurisdiction as well, I would say. So yeah, I think that's really scary, and I would definitely not recommend anyone going that direction.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it does sound quite austere in their regulations. So I know you mentioned that you don't recommend, but if there was someone in China who would essentially won't be able to leave China, but still will want to participate within blockchain, do you sort of see any interesting opportunities that could come out from China?
I think one thing you can do is to kind of leveraging the Hong Kong market, which crypto is legal right now. So, Hashkey just went public today. I mean, they didn't do so well with the first day trading, though. Their price kind of like dropped below the opening price on the first day. But, you know, Hong Kong is definitely where crypto is legal and they do support crypto as business practice. So I think that's one opportunity. And a lot of Chinese investors, Chinese builders do come out to Hong Kong and to invest and to try out different DFs products. So if you really want to try it, I think Hong Kong and Shenzhen could be the best place to start it out.
So this is kind of like what I'm thinking at the moment. You've lived this sort of entrepreneurial career for a while. Tell me some stories about your experience, right? Like tell me about like your first business. Tell me about your first failure, because I think that's kind of like a story that most people would like to know about
Yeah,
you. How did you
yeah,
start?
totally. So I started out, my first entrepreneurship was, in my college. I did my supercar club, which got me onto the LA Times front page and got the name for Crazy Rich Asians because we kind of like started out the trend of changing the Asian image in America. Asian image in America was really like nerdy. It was really like geeky, weak, and a little bit weird, right? So we were trying to, bring some diversity to that image through our movement back in the days. And we were, successful to some extent, right? They later created the movie Crazy Rich Asians. They later also created a show called
Yeah.
Blame Empire. I'm also a friend with the producer Kelly. We do hang out all the time, and we're talking about creating a new show about Asian entrepreneurs in America. And so that's how, everything began. And later, as I was saying, I did the gaming startup, which we later pivoted into blockchain. We actually got in at a great time because that was like back in 2016, 2017. So we raised over 50,000 Ethereum and 200
Wow.
Bitcoin when it was around $100 and Bitcoin was like 2,000. And we got a little carried away, right? We started acquiring a lot of gaming companies back in the day. We were trying to bring all their games on the chain. I think at the peak, we acquired over 20 gaming studios in China and the largest, game prop trading platform called 17u.com. So that was really cool. But like when China was supporting crypto back in the days, right? And US was against it. And now obviously the table has turned. In 2019, China started banning all crypto and the blockchain related companies hard. So all of our games got delisted from the app stores.
Oh no.
And yeah, we took a huge loss, and Bitcoin crashed from close to 20K to $3,000 within a couple months. And I think the hardest day was like a single day, it dropped from like $10,000 to under 4,000, so 3,800. I think it was like uh March 21st, 2020. That was pretty insane. And I personally took a huge loss that day. Then afterwards, I just been incubating a lot of projects, and Memecore is definitely one of the most successful ones.
Yeah, and I mean it's a real roller coaster. No pun intended, because Memecore had actually a roller coaster in Lotte World in Korea, in Korean
Yeah.
Blockchain Week this year. So I think that was like a probably one of like the better, if not the best, crypto events so far, especially in
Oh
this
yeah, yeah.
world.
We do have a lot of great events, and so we did one in Dubai, during 2024 in Dubai. We did with OKX in America, multiple ones, one in Vietnam, multiple ones with Binance Thailand in Thailand. And yeah, we do have a lot of fun events. I would love to send you more invites.
Yeah, please send it. I'll come. Like, I'll bring the whole team with me. Okay, so thank you for sharing most of your journeys. We're now at the part of the questions where you give me a little bit of your thoughts on what the
Yeah.
next meta is for crypto coming into the new year.
Yeah, totally. So as we mentioned, I think tokenized stock is definitely a huge thing. With all the traditional Wall Street people coming in, to unleash a crazy amount of money and liquidity into blockchain in general, and that kind of brings RWA, which means not only equity market, potentially all the commodity ETFs could be traded on chain as well. Based on my talk with some internal people at BlackRock, that would be huge. And prediction market is obviously hot right now. Everyone is talking about it. Even the traditional people. Coinbase just released their prediction market plans. Binance just released their prediction market plans. So yeah, that's definitely going to be huge as well.
Yeah, I think prediction markets is also going to be a very big one, especially recently because Kalshi raised $1 billion, and suddenly everywhere, like everyone and their dogs are building out a prediction market. But yeah, this is really interesting insight for that, Rudy. Last one, what are the future plans with Memecore?
So for Memecore in 2026, the two largest goals is first expanding the ecosystems, right? So we are still consistently recruiting projects through our ecosystem fund, and we hosted a hackathon. So we're definitely going to integrate a lot more DFs in 2026, which still follow our mission that empowering meme communities with utility DFs. We're onboarding a lot of infrastructures as well as fund apps like the MinMax Perps and many others, right? And also, the second part is also something we talked about, which is big offline events, right? So our mission is always bring the meme culture to the world, right? So bring fun meme cultures to the world. And as you mentioned, the Korean Blockchain Week amusement park party was a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot more fun in Dubai, in America, in Vegas, and in everywhere. So it's a lot of cool stuff coming. We're planning out, like working with a lot of influencers. And last time in our private party in Korean Blockchain Week, even Tristan Thompson came along, and we're talking to like iShowSpeed right now. He may came to our next event as well, and yeah, many others.
So I'm gonna totally tag iShowSpeed right after this too, just to like let everyone know that he's coming for the next Memecore event.
Yeah, let's do it. 100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rudy, for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us. Any final thoughts or any final words for the rest of the audience?
Just want to wish everyone an early Merry Christmas, and hold tight. I know the market is a little rough lately, but we will always come through. I've been the bull, and I've been many bulls and bears, and this is by far the most promising one.
Amazing positive words on the final note. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the AthenaX live stream. And I will see you at the next one.